Jake Morrison opened his eyes and felt the familiar sting of awakening from cryosleep. His body ached as warmth returned to his limbs. The soft blue glow of the ship's medical bay surrounded him as robotic arms withdrew the feeding tubes and monitoring cables from his body. He had been asleep for 50,000 years this time, part of the rotation system that kept the massive colony ship running with minimal crew. The ship's computer spoke in its calm female voice. "Captain Morrison, we have reached the coordinates. You are needed on the bridge immediately." Jake pulled himself from the cryopod and dressed quickly in his uniform. The vengeance of Terra stretched for miles in every direction around him. It housed 2 million humans in various states of sleep and activity. This was one of 12 ships that had fled Earth 500,000 years ago when the war became hopeless. As he walked through the corridors toward the bridge, Jake noticed something different in the air. The crew members he passed looked troubled. Some were crying. Others stared at him with expressions he couldn't read. Fear mixed with anger, and something else he couldn't identify. The bridge doors opened to reveal Lisa Bennett standing at the main display screen. She was the ship's chief science officer and had been Jake's friend since before the exodus began. Her face was pale as she turned to greet him. "Jake, I'm sorry to wake you early, but you need to see this," Lisa said quietly. The main screen showed empty space filled with floating rocks and debris. Jake recognized the star patterns from the navigation charts. This should have been the Sol system. This should have been Earth. "Where is our home?" Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Lisa touched a control and the view changed. The debris field came into focus, and Jake could see twisted metal and strange geometric shapes among the rocks. The planet was destroyed, Jake, not by natural causes. We found weapon signatures in the quantum residue. Someone did this on purpose. Kyle Rodriguez entered the bridge behind them. The Admiral commanded all 12 colony ships from his flagship, but he had come to the Vengeance personally to see Earth's grave. His weathered face showed the strain of leadership across centuries of travel. "How long ago?" Kyle asked Lisa. "The quantum decay suggests it happened about 200,000 years after we left," she replied. "Earth fought for a long time, after we were gone. The debris shows signs of massive defensive installations that were built and rebuilt many times." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. "Who did this?" Lisa brought up new displays showing alien technology mixed in with the human remains. "We're still analyzing, but the quantum signatures match records from our databases. It was the Hegemony Coalition, the same alliance of alien species that drove us from Earth originally." Amy Fletcher arrived on the bridge carrying a data tablet. She was the fleet's historian and had spent her career studying the enemies that had forced humanity to flee. "I've been analyzing the other ships' reports," she said. "All 12 fleets have reached their target coordinates. Every single system that was supposed to be a human colony is occupied by hegemony species." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just lost Earth. They had lost everything. Every world they had hoped to find. Every backup plan they had made. Every safe harbor they had dreamed of reaching was gone. "They hunted us down," Kyle said slowly. "Even after we left, they kept hunting." Amy nodded grimly. "The quantum archaeology shows a systematic campaign. They traced our colony ship's departure vectors and followed every possible route. Any world we might have reached was either destroyed or occupied." Jake looked at the debris field that had once been Earth and felt something he had never experienced before. It wasn't just sadness or anger. It was a deep burning rage that seemed to fill every cell in his body. Did anyone survive? Are we the only ones left? Lisa worked at her console for several minutes before responding. "I'm detecting quantum beacon signatures deeper in the debris field. Messages left in quantum fold space. They're designed to activate only when approached by human technology." "Put them through," Kyle ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then cleared to reveal voices speaking English. The first message was from someone calling himself General Carter from Earth Defense Command. "To our children among the stars, this is our final transmission. The hegemony fleets have broken through the Luna defense grid. Earth has maybe days left. We die knowing that you live somewhere out there in the darkness. We held them off for 3 centuries after you left, but there are too many of them. When you return, and we know you will return, remember us. Remember what they did to your home. Make them pay." More messages followed. Scientists describing the weapons used against Earth. Soldiers reporting the systematic destruction of human colonies. Civilians sending their love to children and grandchildren they would never meet. The final message came from someone who identified herself only as Sarah. "I'm broadcasting this from the ruins of New York. I can see their ships landing in the distance. I want our people to know that we never stopped fighting. We never stopped believing that you would come back someday. They think they've won by destroying our world, but they're wrong. They've only made sure that when you return, you'll know exactly what they are. They're murderers, they're monsters. And when you're strong enough, you need to show them what happens when you try to kill humanity." The transmission cut to static, then silence. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These weren't the same humans who had fled Earth 500,000 years ago. Generations of space-based living had changed them. They were taller and stronger, from low gravity. Their reflexes were faster from dealing with the dangers of deep space. Their minds were sharper from centuries of advanced education and genetic improvements. Most importantly, they had spent 500,000 years preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every system on every ship had been upgraded and improved. Every weapon had been redesigned and tested. Every human had been trained for war from birth, even if they called it survival training. "Admiral," Jake said to Kyle, "request permission to send a message to the other fleets." Kyle nodded. "Granted." Jake activated the ship's communications array and spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Captain Morrison of the Vengeance of Terra to all human ships. We have found our home. We have seen what was done to our people. The children of Earth are no longer refugees. We are no longer the hunted. Starting today, we become something our enemies never expected us to become. We become their nightmare." 11 responses came back immediately, each captain confirming. They had received the message and understood its meaning. The age of human exile was over. The age of retribution was about to begin. The 12 colony ships came together in the empty space between stars like a gathering of ancient warriors. Each vessel was massive beyond the imagination of the aliens who had destroyed Earth. The humans had not been idle during their long journey through the void. Marcus Cole stood in the main hangar of the Vengeance of Terra and watched as shuttles from the other ships arrived. He commanded the Colonial Defense Forces, and what emerged from those shuttles would have terrified the aliens who remembered the old humans. These were not the same species that had fled Earth 500,000 years ago. The humans were taller, now averaging nearly 7 feet in height. Their bones were denser from generations of genetic optimization. Their muscles were more efficient from centuries of low-gravity adaptation. Their eyes could see across more light spectrums from living in the darkness between stars. Most importantly, their minds had been shaped by 500,000 years of focused hatred. Elena Davis approached Marcus as her team unloaded equipment from their shuttle. She commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Division, and her people looked more like living shadows than humans. Genetic modifications had given them the ability to bend light around their bodies and move without making sound. "The first scouts are ready to deploy," Elena reported. "We've identified the current borders of hegemony space. It's massive, Marcus. They control most of this galaxy now." Marcus nodded as he watched more shuttles arrive. Each brought specialists who had been bred and trained for this moment across countless generations. How massive! Over 3,000 star systems. Billions of worlds. The population must be in the trillions, Elena said. They've had 500,000 years to expand and grow comfortable. Ben Parker joined them at the hangar's observation deck. He led the intelligence operations that would penetrate enemy territory. His people had undergone surgical modifications that allowed them to pass as various alien species when necessary. "That's their weakness," Ben said. "Comfort makes species soft. They've forgotten how to fight a real war. For them, military action means putting down rebellions or handling pirates. They've never faced an enemy that wanted to destroy them completely. More shuttles arrived, bringing teams that defied easy description. Susan Wright's weapons specialists had spent centuries developing tools of war that used physics principles the hegemony had never encountered. Her people carried devices that could disrupt matter at the quantum level and tear apart the fundamental forces that held atoms together. "Show me what we're working with," Marcus said to Susan as her team demonstrated their equipment. Susan activated a small device that looked like a simple metal tube. She pointed it at a derelict asteroid floating nearby and pressed a control. The asteroid simply stopped existing. It didn't explode or break apart. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was empty space where it had been. "Quantum disruptor," Susan explained calmly. "It breaks the bonds between subatomic particles, works on any matter, including starship hulls and planetary surfaces," Ben whistled softly. "How many of those do we have?" "Every human soldier carries one," Susan replied, "along with temporal bombs, nanoplagues, and gravity weapons. We've had a long time to think about how to kill our enemies." Elena activated her stealth equipment and vanished completely from sight. Her voice continued to speak from empty air. "My scouts have already begun infiltrating hegemony space. We've identified their three main species and how they organize their society. The air shimmered and Elena became visible again as she deactivated her camouflage. The Vreks are reptilian humanoids who handle military operations. They're fast and strong but not very creative. The N3 are energy beings who control technology and communication networks. They're intelligent but arrogant. The Mokari are insectoid hive minds who do manufacturing and construction. They're efficient but inflexible." Marcus studied the tactical displays Elena had prepared. "Weaknesses?" "All of them," Elena replied. "The Vreks think like traditional soldiers. They'll never expect the kind of warfare we're prepared to bring. The N3 believe they're the smartest beings in the galaxy. They won't see our tricks coming until it's too late. The Mokari can only think as a group. Disrupt their hive communication, and they become helpless." Ben added his own intelligence reports. "My deep cover teams are already in place on their major worlds. The hegemony remembers humanity, but they think of us as ancient history. They call us the plague species in their mythology. Most of their young don't even believe we were real." "Perfect," Marcus said with a cold smile. "Let them keep thinking that." Troy Anderson arrived with the most unusual human soldiers anyone had seen. His Phantom division had been modified to exist partially outside normal space-time. They could walk through solid matter and appear anywhere without using ships or transportation. "We're ready to begin Phase 1 operations," Troy reported. "My people can strike anywhere in hegemony space without warning. We'll start with their most secure facilities and work our way down to civilian targets." Marcus looked around the hangar at the gathered forces. These humans had been shaped by centuries of focused purpose. Every child had been raised knowing that someday they would return to make their enemies pay for Earth's destruction. Every adult had spent their lives preparing for war against species who had committed genocide. "What's our current military strength?" Marcus asked. Ben consulted his data tablet. "Active military personnel across all 12 ships total 40 million humans. Support personnel and civilian combatants bring us to nearly 200 million total. Every person over the age of 12 is trained in multiple forms of combat." Elena added, "Our stealth capabilities allow us to strike without being detected. Our weapons technology is centuries ahead of anything the hegemony has encountered. Our soldiers are genetically and cybernetically enhanced beyond their ability to match." Susan nodded toward her weapons displays. "Most importantly, we fight differently than they do. They fight to conquer territory and capture resources. We fight to cause maximum psychological damage and break their will to resist." Marcus activated the ship's communication system to address all 40 million human soldiers across the 12 fleets. "Warriors of humanity, the time has come. We have seen the grave of our home world. We have heard the final words of our people. For 500,000 years we have prepared for this moment." He paused to let his words reach every ship and every soldier. "The aliens who destroyed Earth think they won their war long ago. They believe humanity is extinct. They have grown comfortable in their stolen galaxy. They are about to learn that the children of Earth never forgive and never forget. The response came back from all 12 ships simultaneously, 40 million voices speaking as one. Remember Earth, honor the dead, no mercy for the murderers. Elena activated her tactical displays showing hegemony space. Red dots marked high-value targets. Blue lines showed infiltration routes. Green areas indicated worlds ready for liberation by human forces. Phase 1 begins immediately, Marcus announced. We start with psychological warfare and targeted strikes. We want them to know they're at war before they understand who they're fighting. By the time they realize humanity has returned, it will be too late for them to mount an effective defense. Troy Anderson and his phantom soldiers shimmered and disappeared as they prepared to deploy across hegemony space. Elena's scouts activated their stealth systems and vanished from sight. Ben's intelligence operatives prepared their disguises and false identities. Susan Wright smiled as she watched her weapons teams load their equipment onto assault shuttles. After 500,000 years of preparation, it's time to show these aliens what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. The war for Retribution was about to begin, and the hegemony had no idea what was coming for them. Troy Anderson materialized inside the most secure facility in hegemony space without triggering a single alarm. The Vrex Military Command Center on their homeworld was protected by energy shields, quantum scanners, and automated defense systems that could detect a mouse moving through the ventilation shafts. None of them noticed Troy walking through their solid walls like a ghost. His Phantom division had been modified with technology that placed them slightly outside normal spacetime. To the aliens' sensors, they simply didn't exist. Troy moved through the command center, studying their defensive positions and communication systems. Everything he saw confirmed what human intelligence had predicted. The hegemony was prepared to fight rebels and pirates, not an advanced military force. Troy placed a small device behind the main communication console and activated it with a thought. The quantum virus would spread through their entire network within hours, giving human forces access to every military communication in hegemony space. The aliens would never detect it, because it existed in quantum dimensions their technology couldn't perceive. On the other side of the galaxy, Diane Foster's strike team approached the Memorial of Unity, built on the ruins of Luna. Earth's former moon had been converted into a massive monument celebrating the hegemony's greatest victory. Alien tourists came from across the galaxy to see where the plague species had been finally eliminated. Diane's team consisted of only 12 humans, but they carried enough firepower to level mountains. More importantly, they carried the accumulated anger of 500,000 years. The memorial's defenses were impressive by hegemony standards. Energy barriers, automated weapons platforms, and a garrison of elite Vrex soldiers. The humans walked through the defenses like they weren't there. Their personal shields deflected the weapons' fire harmlessly. Their quantum disruptors eliminated the automated systems simply by pointing at them. The Vrex soldiers found themselves paralyzed by neural stunners that attacked their nervous systems directly. "Begin recording," Diane ordered as her team reached the main memorial chamber. The chamber contained a massive holographic display showing the final battle for Earth. Alien children watched in fascination as the presentation showed hegemony forces, destroying human cities and executing human civilians. The narrator spoke proudly of how the dangerous plague species had been eliminated to make the galaxy safe. Diane's team placed quantum explosives throughout the chamber and activated them. Simultaneously, the explosions didn't destroy the memorial. They transformed it. The holographic displays began showing the true history of Earth's destruction, complete with recordings that human survivors had hidden in quantum fold space. Alien tourists watched in horror as the new displays showed hegemony forces burning human hospitals and executing human children. They saw human families being separated and sent to extermination centers. They heard the final messages from human survivors begging for mercy that never came. The new memorial ended with a simple message that appeared in every language the hegemony used. "We have returned. Remember Earth." News of the memorial's transformation spread through hegemony space within hours. Government officials tried to dismiss it as terrorist propaganda, but quantum analysis proved the historical records were authentic. The mythical plague species had been real, and the hegemony had committed genocide on a scale that staggered the imagination. Admiral Gorthel of the Vrek's First Fleet received emergency orders to hunt down the terrorists responsible for the Memorial Incident. He deployed 12 battle groups with orders to search every system in the sector. What they found was empty space and quantum signatures from technology they had never encountered. How did they penetrate our defenses without being detected? Gorthel demanded of his intelligence officers. Unknown, sir, came the reply. Their technology appears to operate on principles we don't understand. Our sensors show no evidence of ships or troops in any of the target areas. While Gorthel's fleet searched empty space, Rachel Murphy's Psychological Warfare Division began broadcasting on every communication frequency the hegemony used. The transmission showed archived footage from Earth's final days, complete with audio recordings from human survivors. The broadcasts were brief but devastating. They showed Vrek soldiers laughing as they executed human prisoners. They showed N3 energy beings torturing human scientists to steal their technology. They showed Makari construction drones building monuments from the bones of human children. Each broadcast ended with the same message. The children of humanity remember. We are coming. Hegemony leadership tried to jam the transmissions, but the human signals operated on quantum frequencies that penetrated every form of blocking they attempted. Citizens across the empire found themselves watching footage of atrocities their ancestors had committed 500,000 years ago. The psychological impact was immediate. Many younger aliens had never heard the complete story of humanity's destruction. They had been told it was a necessary military action against a dangerous species. Seeing the evidence of systematic genocide turned their stomachs and challenged everything they had been taught about their civilization's greatest victory. Ben Parker's intelligence teams reported widespread civil unrest on dozens of hegemony worlds. Alien citizens demanding answers from their governments, young Vrek soldiers refusing orders to participate in military operations, N3 energy beings withdrawing from communication networks in protest, Mokari hive minds fragmenting as individual drones began questioning their group consciousness. The first phase is working better than we hoped, Ben reported to the Human Command Council. Their society is starting to fracture from within. 500,000 years of guilt is catching up with them all at once. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source. Alan Peterson had spent centuries developing biological weapons specifically designed for each alien species. His latest creation was something he called the empathy plague, a virus that didn't harm its hosts physically, but forced them to experience the emotions and memories of other species. Peterson's teams released the virus on the 3 hegemony homeworlds simultaneously. Within days, Vrek soldiers began experiencing the fear their victims had felt. N3 overlords found themselves sharing the pain of the species they had manipulated. Mokari drones suddenly understood individual consciousness and realized they had been treated as expendable tools. The result was chaos throughout hegemony space. Military units stopped following orders as soldiers experienced the terror they had inflicted on others. Government officials resigned rather than continue policies. They now understood from their victims' perspectives. Entire worlds declared independence from the coalition as their populations rejected the empire built on genocide. Ashley Clark's Temporal Warfare Division implemented the final element of the first strike. Using quantum manipulation technology, they began altering key historical events throughout hegemony space. Weapons factories discovered their foundations had been sabotaged centuries ago. Battle fleets found their hulls were made from defective materials because the mining operations had been disrupted in the past. The message was clear. Humanity had learned to wage war across time itself. Supreme Chancellor Vothak called an emergency meeting of the coalition leadership as reports of chaos poured in from across their empire. The reptilian Vrek's military commander, the crystalline N3 technology overseer, and the insectoid Mokari production coordinator gathered in their most secure facility to discuss the crisis. How many worlds are affected? Vothak asked. Over 200 systems report some form of unrest, replied the Virex commander. Our soldiers are refusing orders. Citizens are demanding investigations into historical records. Several outer colonies have declared independence, the N3 overseer added. The quantum viruses in our communication networks are spreading faster than we can contain them. Every time we think we've isolated the infection, it appears somewhere else. The biological agent is affecting all three species simultaneously, reported the Mokari coordinator. Our drones are experiencing individual consciousness for the first time. Many have stopped working entirely. Vothak studied the tactical displays, showing the extent of the crisis. Are we certain this is the work of human survivors? The quantum signatures match archived records from the old war, confirmed the N3 overseer, but their technology is far more advanced than what we faced 500,000 years ago. How much more advanced? Vothak asked. The pause before the answer told him everything he needed to know. Unknown, Chancellor. Possibly centuries ahead of our current capabilities. For the first time in 500,000 years, the Hegemony Coalition faced an enemy they didn't understand using weapons they couldn't counter. The children of Earth had returned, and their first strike had shattered the foundation of an empire built on humanity's grave. Victoria Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched as 700 hegemony worlds burned simultaneously. This was scorched memory, the human battle doctrine she had spent 2 centuries perfecting. Unlike their enemies, who fought for territory and resources, humanity fought for one thing: complete and total retribution for the children of Earth who never got to live. The attacks were coordinated across the galaxy with precision that stunned the hegemony military. Human forces appeared without warning at critical infrastructure sites, government centers, and military installations. They struck with weapons the aliens had never encountered, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Status report from all strike teams, Victoria ordered. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Gary Thompson, coordinated responses from across human space. Phantom Division reports successful infiltration of Rex High Command. Intelligence networks are completely compromised. Stealth Division has eliminated orbital defense platforms around 200 worlds. Weapons Division has deployed quantum disruptors against the hegemony's main battle fleets. Victoria nodded as she studied the tactical displays. The hegemony's response was predictable but ineffective. They were trying to fight humans using conventional military doctrine, but humanity had evolved far beyond conventional warfare. Supreme Admiral Kethmore commanded the largest military force in galactic history. His fleet of 10,000 warships represented the combined might of 3 species and 500,000 years of technological advancement. He had moved his forces to what intelligence suggested was the main concentration of human ships near the former Sol system. Instead of finding human fleets, Kethmore's forces encountered empty space and automated beacons that activated when they approached. The beacons didn't fire weapons or launch attacks. They broadcast something far more devastating. The dying screams of Earth's children, amplified across subspace for every alien soldier to hear. "Turn off those transmissions immediately," Kethmore ordered his communications staff. "We can't, sir," came the reply. "They're broadcasting on quantum frequencies that penetrate our blocking systems. Every ship in the fleet is receiving the EGQ signals." The psychological impact on the hegemony forces was immediate and catastrophic. Alien soldiers who had grown up believing humans were a mythical threat suddenly heard the actual voices of human children crying for their parents as their world burned. They heard human families being torn apart, and human civilians begging for mercy that never came. Many soldiers abandoned their posts rather than continue listening. Others turned their weapons on themselves, rather than face the guilt of serving an empire built on such atrocities. Entire ships mutinied as crews refused to follow orders from commanders they now saw as the inheritors of genocide. Nathan Brooks led humanity's most controversial division into the heart of enemy territory. His Genetic Justice Corps carried engineered viruses designed not to kill, but to force each alien species to experience human genetic memories through direct neural interface. The viruses were species-specific and incredibly sophisticated. When they infected Vrex soldiers, those reptilian warriors suddenly remembered the fear of human children hiding in bombed-out buildings. When they reached N3 energy beings, those crystalline entities experienced the pain of human parents, watching their cities burn. When they affected Makari drones, those insectoid minds felt individual terror for the first time in their hive-based existence. Report from the genetic justice teams, Nathan transmitted to Victoria. All 3 species are showing severe psychological trauma from forced memory integration. Vrex military units are experiencing massive desertion rates. N3 communication networks are shutting down as operators refuse to coordinate military actions. Mokari construction drones are abandoning their hives and seeking individual consciousness. Victoria smiled grimly as she watched the reports come in. Excellent. Phase 2 is proceeding ahead of schedule. But the most devastating weapon wasn't technological at all. Dr. Alan Peterson had refined his empathy plague to target the fundamental psychology of each alien species. The latest version didn't just force them to experience human suffering, it made them truly understand each other for the first time in their history. Vrex soldiers suddenly realized that the N3 had been manipulating their thoughts through subtle energy influences for centuries. The crystalline beings had treated the reptilian warriors as crude tools, enhancing their aggression and reducing their intelligence to make them better weapons. N3 overlords discovered that the Mokari had been secretly breeding programs designed to optimize energy output from crystalline beings. The insectoid hive minds had been harvesting N3 energy to power their construction projects while convincing their victims it was voluntary cooperation. Mokari drones learned that both the Vrex and N3 considered them completely expendable. Military plans called for using Mokari-built facilities as shields during battle. Construction projects deliberately included flaws that would cause Mokari workers to be killed in industrial accidents to reduce population pressure. The result was the complete collapse of cooperation between the 3 species. Military units that had worked together for millennia suddenly turned on each other. Vrex soldiers attacked N3 commanders they now recognized as manipulators. N3 beings withdrew their support from Mokari construction projects they realized were slave labor. Mokari drones abandoned their hives and began forming individual relationships that horrified their collective consciousness. The coalition is fragmenting faster than our best projections predicted, reported Colonel Frank Mitchell, Victoria's strategic analysis officer. Internal conflicts are erupting across their entire empire. They're spending more resources fighting each other than trying to defend against our attacks. Victoria studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. That was always the plan. United, the 3 species were too numerous for us to defeat through direct military action. Divided, they become vulnerable to the kind of warfare we've spent 500,000 years perfecting. Ashley Clark's Temporal Warfare Division had been implementing causality strikes across hegemony space with devastating effectiveness, using quantum manipulation technology that existed partially outside normal time. They could alter historical events to create current military advantages. Weapon manufacturing facilities discovered that their raw materials had been sabotaged decades ago during the mining process. Starships found themselves structurally unsound because the construction crews had been influenced by human agents working centuries in the past. Military commanders received battle plans that contained critical errors because the strategic computers had been compromised before they were built. Temporal Division reporting completion of Phase 2 operations. Ashley transmitted to Victoria. We've successfully altered approximately 15,000 key historical events across hegemony space. Their military infrastructure is collapsing from systemic failures they can't detect or repair. The beauty of temporal warfare was that the victims never understood what was happening to them. Equipment failed due to flaws that had always existed but were only now manifesting. Supply lines collapsed because the transportation networks had been subtly compromised during their original construction. Military units found themselves unable to coordinate because their communication systems contained hidden vulnerabilities that human agents had built into them generations ago. Supreme Chancellor Vothak called another emergency meeting as the crisis deepened beyond control. The 3 species leaders gathered in their most secure bunker, but they could no longer trust each other enough to cooperate effectively. Our latest intelligence estimates suggest the human forces number less than 50 million total, reported the Vrex military commander. Yet they're defeating military units that outnumber them 1,000 to 1. The N3 technology overseer responded with barely contained anger. Because your soldiers keep deserting or attacking our support personnel instead of fighting the actual enemy. Your energy manipulations have been compromising our forces for centuries, the Vrex commander shot back. We're done following orders from species that treat us as expendable tools. The Mokari production coordinator interrupted their argument. Both of you have been using our construction capabilities without compensation while planning to sacrifice our workers in your military operations. We are withdrawing all support from coalition military activities. Vothak watched his empire collapse from within as the three species turned on each other, with the same ruthless efficiency they had once used against humanity. Can we negotiate with the human survivors? The question hung in the air for several moments before anyone answered. They've made no attempt to communicate with us, the N3 overseer finally replied. Every action they've taken suggests they want complete destruction of our civilization, not negotiation. Based on what we did to their homeworld, can you blame them? Asked the Mokari coordinator. It was the first time in 500,000 years that any hegemony leader had questioned the morality of humanity's destruction. The admission that their greatest victory might have been genocide marked the beginning of the end for the coalition. Victoria received the final reports from all human divisions with grim satisfaction. Caroline Hayes stood before the rebuilt Luna Memorial and prepared to address the galaxy that had tried to erase humanity from existence. Behind her stood representatives from all 12 colony ships, along with something the hegemony had never expected to see: aliens who had chosen to stand with humanity rather than their own species. The broadcast would reach every communication system in known space. After 500,000 years of preparation, the time had come to offer their enemies one final choice. I am President Hayes of the Human Exodus Government, she began, her voice carrying across the stars to billions of alien listeners. For 500,000 years our children have prepared for this moment, while you celebrated the genocide of our homeworld. The camera pulled back to show the restored memorial behind her, where once the hegemony had displayed holographic celebrations of Earth's destruction, now stood a garden filled with plants whose seeds had been carried from humanity's lost home. The contrast was deliberate and unmistakable. We offer the coalition one chance at redemption, Caroline continued. Acknowledge the genocide of humanity. Make reparations to the memory of our dead. Submit to human oversight of your military forces. Accept these terms, and learn to live in a galaxy where Earth's children have returned. She paused to let her words reach every corner of hegemony space, before delivering the ultimatum that would define the next age of galactic history. Refuse, and discover what happens when prey becomes predator. The response came within hours, from Supreme Chancellor Vothak, speaking for what remained of the fractured coalition leadership. His transmission was broadcast from their most secure bunker, but his words carried the arrogance that had defined the hegemony for 500,000 years. The humans were a plague upon galactic civilization, Vothak declared. Their destruction was necessary for the peace and prosperity you see around you. We will not submit to the demands of survivors who threaten the stability of our empire. The transmission ended, and Caroline nodded to Justin Phillips, who stood waiting at the Tactical Command Center. The Admiral had been preparing for this moment since the human fleets first gathered in the ruins of Sol. Protocol Omega is authorized, Caroline said quietly. Justin activated the quantum communicators that linked all 12 human fleets across the galaxy. All Genesis engines begin deployment immediately. 12 massive constructs, each the size of a small moon, emerged from quantum fold space at precisely calculated positions throughout hegemony territory. These were the Genesis engines, built during humanity's long exile and powered by the focused grief of 500,000 years. The engines didn't destroy worlds like conventional weapons. Instead, they transformed them into something that honored the memory of Earth's lost children. Atmospheres began shifting to match Earth's ancient conditions. Gravity fields adjusted to human norms. Native ecosystems found themselves evolving to favor Earth-compatible life forms. On the former hegemony capital world, alien citizens watched in wonder and terror as their purple skies turned blue and their crimson seas became the deep azure of Earth's oceans. Plants that had never existed on their world began growing in their cities. The very air they breathed started carrying the scent of flowers that had died with humanity's home world. "The transformation is proceeding faster than projected," reported Dr. Kelly Martinez from her position aboard the Genesis engine designated Terra Nova. "The quantum field generators are rewriting matter at the molecular level. Each world will be converted to Earth normal conditions within 10 standard days. But the most devastating attack wasn't against their worlds or their bodies." Kelly led the Historical Correction Project, the final phase of humanity's psychological warfare campaign, using quantum broadcasting technology that penetrated every form of shielding. She began transmitting the complete and unedited history of Earth's final centuries directly into the racial memory of every hegemony species. The transmissions couldn't be blocked, deleted, or ignored. They became permanent additions to the historical record of each alien species, impossible to alter or forget. For the first time in 500,000 years, the children of the Coalition learned exactly what their ancestors had done to humanity. Young Vrek soldiers discovered that their military traditions were built on the systematic murder of human civilians. N3 energy beings learned that their technological achievements had been stolen from human scientists who were tortured to death for their knowledge. Mokari drones realized that their construction projects included monuments built from the bones of human children. The psychological impact was immediate and catastrophic. Across the hegemony, younger generations rose up against their elders in what historians would later call the Great Awakening. They refused to serve governments built on genocide. They demanded justice for humanity and accountability for crimes committed in their names. Seth Rogers commanded the establishment of the new Terran protectorates on worlds where humans and repentant aliens worked together to build something better than what had come before. These became beacons of hope in a galaxy finally forced to confront its greatest shame. "The first protectorate worlds are exceeding all expectations," Seth reported to Caroline. "We have nearly 1 million alien volunteers helping with the terraforming projects. Many of them are young hegemony citizens who want to make amends for their species' historical crimes." The revolution spread faster than anyone had anticipated. On world after world, alien populations overthrew their governments and declared independence from the Coalition. Many requested human oversight to help them build new societies based on justice rather than the celebration of genocide. The three-species coalition that had ruled the galaxy for 500,000 years collapsed. Within months, as its own children rebelled, Vrek's military units joined human forces rather than fight for an empire they now understood was built on atrocity. N3 technology specialists volunteered their knowledge to help repair the damage their ancestors had caused. Mokari construction. Teams worked alongside humans to build memorials honoring Earth's lost children. Jake Morrison stood in the newly constructed memorial garden on New Earth, the first world completely transformed by the Genesis engines. Around him, humans and aliens worked together tending plants whose genetic patterns had been preserved from humanity's lost homeworld. The garden was beautiful beyond description. Earth flowers bloomed in soil created from the quantum restructuring of alien minerals. Human children played alongside young aliens who had never known the old empire built on hatred. Above them, the 12 colony ships rested in honored retirement, their long mission finally complete. Status report from the Protectorate worlds, Jake requested from his aide, Lieutenant Patricia Grant. 217 worlds have declared independence from the hegemony and requested human protection, she reported. The Genesis engines have successfully terraformed 53 worlds to Earth normal conditions. Alien volunteer forces are helping with security and reconstruction. On all Protectorate worlds, Jake smiled as he watched a group of young Vreks teaching human children how to identify edible plants, while human adults showed alien youngsters how to tend an Earth garden. The scene would have been impossible to imagine when the colony ships first fled their dying homeworld. What about the remaining hegemony leadership? Supreme Chancellor Vothak and his core supporters have retreated to their most secure fortress world, Patricia replied. They control fewer than 100 star systems now, and their own population is in revolt. Intelligence suggests they're planning to surrender within days. The surrender came exactly as predicted. Vothak's final transmission was broadcast to all Protectorate worlds and carried a tone of defeated acceptance that marked the end of an age. The Hegemony Coalition formally surrenders to the Human Exodus government, he announced. We acknowledge the genocide committed against humanity 500,000 years ago. We accept responsibility for the crimes of our ancestors. We submit to human authority and request mercy for our surviving populations. Caroline Hayes received the surrender from her office in the new Luna facility, built where the old memorial had stood. Around her, displays showed Protectorate worlds where humans and aliens were building a future together based on justice and remembrance, rather than conquest and genocide. The surrender is accepted, Caroline replied. War criminals will be tried according to human justice. Cooperative populations will be integrated into the Protectorate system. The age of the hegemony is over. The age of galactic redemption has begun. Justin Phillips deactivated the Genesis engines as their work neared completion. Across the galaxy, hundreds of worlds now carried the blue skies and green landscapes that honored Earth's memory. More importantly, they carried populations that understood the true cost of hatred and the value of cooperation between species. The final image of humanity's return showed children of multiple species playing together in authentic Earth sunlight, on worlds that had been transformed from monuments to genocide into gardens of hope. Above them flew banners bearing the simple message that would define the new age. Remember Earth. Honor her children. Never again. The 12 colony ships had completed their mission. The children of humanity had returned not just as conquerors,